Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Mary Nunaley. Mary Nunaley co-founded her business, the Lavender Dragon Team, with her son, and she focuses on creating engaging, interactive content for online courses and lead magnets. She is a Chicago native, but has lived in Nashville, Tennessee area for over 20 years. Welcome to the podcast, Mary.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and I actually went to school in Chicago,
Oh, where did you
and
go?
yeah, I went to the Illinois College of Optometry there,
Very
and it is
nice.
like a wonderful city. So any Chicagoans, I'm jealous. The only thing I'm not jealous of is the cold.
Oh, and that's the thing I miss the most. So I guess I'm strange.
Well, that's crazy. So just so people can get to know you, why don't you tell us your story, how you started out, how you got to be doing what you're doing now?
Sure. So I'll try to keep this short, but I started out actually in the restaurant business. So when I was 16 years old, my dad's like, you need to go get a job. My friend's daughter is working at McDonald's, so you should go apply there. So I did. And then 6 years later, my dad's going, why are you still working at McDonald's? When are you going to get a real job? But at that point, I had fallen in love with the food industry. And so while I have a degree in Russian history from DePaul University, also in Chicago, I stayed in restaurants and food for many years, worked at Hyatt hotels, worked at Gaylord Opryland hotels. And in those roles, I also got involved with training. So when I came to Nashville, it was to work at the Gaylord Opryland. And I started out as a restaurant manager, moved into training responsibilities for all of the food and beverage employees. So that was about 1,200 at that time. Um, Loved it. I've always been associated with food. Then I got the tap on the shoulder to help run a culinary apprenticeship program at our local community college. So I left the corporate world and I moved into higher education and teaching. So I'm still training, I'm still doing those things. Then I learned about instructional design. And at that time at the college, courses were just starting to go online. So I got a master's degree in distance education, online education, worked with faculty to bring their courses online. At the time, I had my two children who were both growing. My youngest, Amadeus, who I eventually co-founded the business with, decided he did not want to go to a state university. He was a tennis player. He wanted to go out of state to play tennis. So at that point, I said, well, if I can't use my tuition discount, I'm going to go back in the corporate world and start making some more money again. So I left, worked at another hospitality related company doing training, website development, which led into what we do now with the online courses. And then I also worked for several years at a technology company in Nashville, managed a team of about 20 instructional designers. And then about 4 years ago, I said, it's time for me to like just follow my passion, follow my dream. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm like, what the heck? We're just going to quit our job and see what happens. Now, with that being said, I did have some clients already lined up. I was pretty confident that I could, make it through the first year in business. But I'll tell you what, that first year of business was super scary, especially when my son quit his job and came home and said, Mom, I want to join the family business. And I'm like, what family business? I was just planning to freelance and
Mhm.
pick up projects because my partner had just retired from teaching middle school science for 30 years. So it was like, oh, we'll freelance, we'll travel. And then my son comes home and he's like, yeah, I'm going to join the family business. Oh, by the way, I'm about $80,000 in student loan debt.
Wow.
And so from there, it's like, oh, okay, what can you do? Because he was 22 or something. And so did some like searching and trying different things. He's also very excited about building courses and playing games, adding game elements. And so we've really solidified with what we do in the last 2 years. And it just lights me up every single day. I have so much fun doing it.
Wow. Wow. So, how is it being in business with a 20-year-old son?
So he's 26, so that's
Okay.
okay. But he was 22 when it started. Actually, for us, it's really good. I homeschooled both of my children.
Mhm,
I started homeschooling my daughter in middle school. That was never the plan. She came home from camp one day and said, Mom, I met these kids. They homeschool. I want to homeschool.
mhm,
And I love my daughter dearly, but she and I, butt heads a lot. I think it's that mother daughter thing. So
mhm,
I said, if we survive the summer, we can try homeschooling for a year. My poor son, who's 8 years younger than her, would run screaming from the room every time we pulled out the math book because it was just a total meltdown.
Oh,
But we got through it. My daughter really did well in high school, is very successful in her career now. My son and I then homeschooled. I also helped him with his tennis when his coaches couldn't travel with him. So we've always worked well together. I mean, we still have those moments, and I still have to have those, like, okay, you're not performing up to standards, you need to go get a real job talks. But for the most part, it's really good working together as a family.
mhm. Really cool. Really cool. So, I think that I connected with you is because you were doing fun things. Like
Yes,
some people call it gamifying, but basically, I like to go through life making things fun. I don't care if it's,
exactly.
cutting the bushes outside or pulling weeds in my garden, or it doesn't matter what it is. I
Uh-huh.
have to make it fun or I just won't do it.
Yeah, no, I'm the
It
same
has to
way.
be fun. And so I have to find some way to make it enjoyable. And
Yes,
so, yeah, so talk more about that and how you're using that in your training.
sure. So a lot of folks think about gamification, which is why I didn't specifically bring that up, as points, badges, and leaderboards. And that's an element of it. But when we look at gamification, I think of it much like you said, Dr. Kimberly, as adding that fun back in. It's how do you tap into that part of the brain that's looking for something different and to make whatever you're doing more enjoyable. If you think about the show Mary Poppins, she was always trying to make things fun.
Mhm,
And when you think about gamification, it's really like looking back at games you like to play. What are the things in a game that make you keep coming back? Like, there's a lot of people that don't like Monopoly, but they still keep playing it because there's that sense of competition. There's that, ooh, sense of risk and chance. What's going to happen when I roll the dice? Is it, am I going to go to jail? Am I going to, win $500? And so if you think about gamification and bringing engagement into life in general, it's how do you tap into those things that really make us want to come back and keep doing something, but keep you sort of at the edge of your seat going, oh, I don't know what's going to happen this time.
mhm,
So that's really where we like to incorporate into the things that we do.
mhm. Fun. And you mentioned something earlier about, looking for something different. So I know from my background in brain technology and, therapy for brains is that the brain learns from variety. We learn from variety. We seek novelty, we seek variety, and that's actually how we learn. So now not only is it fun, but we're learning and creating new brain pathways. You want to talk a little bit about that and how you work that in?
Sure. So one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is not just do video courses. And I know that that's pretty much the norm. But again, going back to what you said about creating new brain pathways, is you have to have some variety. So we're not saying that video is bad, but and there's also something to be said about repetition and structure. So if I know that each lesson is going to have an introduction and some content and an activity, that's good because it gives me that sense of structure that we need. But then mix it up, add some elements. I've got a friend that does really fun videos where he dresses up in costume, or
Mhm.
he'll like peek up from above his desk, and you're like, you're not expecting that, but it's really cool because he's still doing video content, but he
Mhm.
also realizes that you have to stir things up so
Mhm.
that your audience remains connected and attached, and it's like, okay, what are they going to do now? I'm a big advocate, and if you've ever heard me speak, I'm always talking about using Easter eggs because it's a low tech, low cost way to
Mhm.
add that variety in a video. With editing software, you can even add what's called a hotspot. So while you're watching the video, you click this hotspot and
Mhm.
something happens. So maybe it's like a just a word. Like if you think about the old Batman cartoons from the 1960s,
Mhm.
kapow, or
Yeah.
congratulations, or something like that. Or it might be a quiz question, a knowledge check that you build right into the video of, okay, what did Mary say at minute 3? Was it Easter egg? Was it, because now you're like, oh, wait, now I need to pay more attention because I don't know when these questions are going to pop up. And it becomes more of a self challenge. it's a little more work on the creator side, but the end result is so much more powerful for the people that are consuming the content. It's like, whoa, this is kind of cool. I'm going to go do the next lesson because what crazy thing is she going to come up with next?
Mhm. That is true. And as you're talking, I was remembering there's a place where I worked. I'm a optometrist, and I was working at a Target Optical. And me and these other two women who worked together, we were always doing funny things to make work more interesting. So we had the same UPS guy that would come in every day. And he'd come in and we'd have the stuff for him on the desk. He'd come in, he'd just run in, he'd swipe it and keep going. So
Ah,
one day we decided to tape the box to the counter. He comes in, he comes to swipe it, and he's like, "Fuck." And then another time, we took a string and we hooked it to it. So when he comes to swipe it, we just pulled it. And we do other things. We're at work, but of course we did it when there were patients in the
right.
but one day I came back from lunch and I walked into the room where the doctor chair was, and one of my coworkers jumped out and said, he was trying to scare me. So it sounds really crazy. Here we are, adults being silly, but you know what? It made the day go by. It was fun. We
Exactly.
did silly things that surprised people. It was the
Yes,
surprise that
surprise and
made it
delight.
so
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, and I've done similar things. Like back in my restaurant days, would be really busy, and I worked at a 24-hour coffee shop style restaurant at a large hotel in downtown Chicago. And this was back when the Little Caesars Pizza commercial was really popular. So I would help pour coffee for our customers, but I would walk behind the servers with my two coffee pots just going coffee coffee to give them the suggestion that maybe somebody in their station needed coffee, but it wasn't a like, why didn't you pour coffee on table number 37? It was just like, okay, here's the crazy manager with her coffee pots going coffee coffee. But then everybody got into it because it's like, okay, what is she going to do now? And so it's that same kind of thing. I would say, just sort of in my own experiences, be careful at the workplace how you use fun, because sometimes it can backfire. And real quick story,
Mhm.
I'm a vegetarian, and one of the restaurants that I was managing, the special was a veal special. And because veal, and some listeners, you may want to just plug your ears on this, the way that veal is made is not necessarily the kindest to the animal. And so I had written on the menu board that it was tortured baby cow meat. I thought that everyone knew that it was a joke, but one of my servers who was not as fluent in English actually went to a table and said, today's special is tortured baby cow meat. And I'm like, okay, okay, that was a good lesson for me. It's just like, know your audience, be very aware of what you're doing, because
Mhm.
sometimes the fun can become hurtful,
Mhm.
but it definitely like sparks some conversation of a language and what a manager should and shouldn't do, especially when I got called into my boss's office. And but it's still very memorable. People still remember that time when Mary said, so it's like, I'm precautionary.
That's right. That's right. I was actually talking to a friend last night and I said, I like teasing and fun as long as it's not mean fun. It can't be mean
Uh-huh,
fun, or
exactly.
I'm not into that. So,
Yeah, no, I want it to be lighthearted and fun and memorable and that kind of thing. And again, it was just a matter of not thinking, like, in my mind, oh, everybody knows this. And
mhm.
it wasn't hurtful, but it was more shocking. And sometimes you got to be careful in the workplace of how you're shocking people.
Yes, that makes sense. So, what other ways do you use to actually make it so people can learn and have fun? And but obviously, when a corporation or a company comes to you and wants you to teach or train something,
Mhm.
they're coming to you because you do things in a fun way, but they still want you to get the message across and
Yes,
for people to
yes.
learn.
Yeah, so we do, especially if it's online courses or even in the classroom, we do a lot of game-based learning as well. So
Mhm.
for refreshers and that type of thing, I was talking to a potential client yesterday, and we were talking about icebreakers for in the classroom. And like, well, when I'm pushed and I don't have anything prepared, I always use my favorite one, which is the toilet paper icebreaker. You could also use tissue. What
Mhm.
you do is you pass the roll of toilet paper around the room and you just tell everyone to take off some squares. And that's all the information that you give them. After everyone has removed the squares, and it's really fun to watch because you have very cautious people to take one, and then others who are thinking, oh, we're going to do something with this, I want to be prepared, and they have this long string. Then you go, okay, great. So for every square of toilet paper that you have in your hands, you need to share a fact about yourself.
Oh gosh.
And so for the people that just took one or two squares, like ha ha ha. And then the people that are like, ooh, I'm gonna try and like game the system and take a lot of toilet paper, all of a sudden they're going, and I was born and I have a dog. And I, and it's just like, oh great, so but it's a real interesting, fun way, and it's memorable.
Mhm.
Because whoever thought of doing an activity using toilet paper, or like I said, a box of tissues. Toilet paper is a little bit more fun though, because it's, again, out of the norm. It's like,
Mhm.
what is this person doing? And then in online training, we do like to use a lot of game elements. We also like to build courses that have interactivity. So it's like drag and drop, find the hidden message, spin the wheel, and then that will take you to a different part of the course so that the learner has some control as well,
Mhm.
instead of just very linearly. Again, some topics have to be linear. If I'm teaching math, if I don't know math, if I don't know addition, subtraction is not going to make sense to me.
Mhm.
But if I'm in algebra, I can certainly blend things up and go, okay, try this. We also do a lot of scenarios. It's like such and such happened. What would you do?
Mhm.
And then based on your answer, you go down different paths to find out what happens. And sometimes you go back a step, and sometimes you go forward to the end quickly. But it's just like in real life. You said you're an optometrist. Well, as you're checking people's vision, the decisions you make are going to impact what happens to that client or patient. And so I often refer to it as the vision test. It's like, do you like A or do you like B? Because I always remember that from my optometrist. Is
Mhm.
this one or this one? So we try to build that same sense of adventure into our courses.
Mhm. Wonderful. So, what kinds of companies or people would hire you? Would you be hired by a school or just by certain corporations, or
Yes,
who are your
so
customers?
that's a great question. Um, from our corporate clients, the majority of them seem to be food and beverage or hospitality industry related, probably because that's where I spent most of my first career.
Mhm.
With our individual entrepreneurial clients, they run the gamut from lawyers, coaches, teachers, and for several of our clients, we'll just build activities that they can then add to a material that they've already created. So, you don't necessarily need to hire us on to build an entire course for you. We
Mhm.
also will be more than happy to sit down and work with you on a gamification strategy that's more than just points, badges, leaderboards, but how do you add that sense of surprise? How do you think this through? What actions do you want your audience to take? And then what's that win state for them? How do they know that they successfully completed the task?
Mhm. And are some of these such that they're kind of evergreen? In other words, they can be used over and over again, even
Yes.
with the same clients, because it can change?
Exactly. So we do use some templates, just because there is a fair bit of programming that we have to do on the back end. But then every template that we use can also be customized. So, if we do this game for you, it's going to look completely different than for this client over here. Or if we do an interactive lead magnet for you, it's going to look very different because the colors are different, the questions are different, the graphics are different. When I say template, I'm really referring to the coding part
Mhm.
of, when you click this button, this action happens.
Mhm.
That's what takes the most time because you really have to think through, okay, now how do they collect this magic, ticket?
Mhm.
So you have to do this and then the ticket has to show up. So when we say templates, it's really more of our coding guidelines, but the front facing product completely different for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know we're doing a lot of online right now, but
Hmm.
in the past or even now, are you doing like, I guess I would call it curriculum for people who want to do live, or do you go in and do live trainings?
Yes, we are doing some of that as well. I'm working on a curriculum package for a client right now. And then I'm also personally doing a live presentation next week for a group. So we are starting to see some of that coming back. I've been in the online space for almost 20 years.
Mhm.
So for me, it's nothing new. It's helping people see that online can be so much more than where it currently is. Because there's, you can start adding in AR and virtual reality, and there's a cost to it right now, but we're not far away from where we can really make these immersive, fun, truly interactive experiences. And we're just knocking on the door of that. We're so close.
Mhm. Yeah. No, before we got on, I was asking you, what is this on the bio you sent me? Gish. I said, what is Gish? And you had to explain it to me. So let's talk about playfulness and Gish.
Oh my
People,
goodness,
what that
yes.
is.
So for those of you who have never heard of Gish, formerly Gish Wish, Gish is the greatest internet scavenger hunt. It used to be the greatest internet scavenger hunt the world has ever seen, but it got cut in half because, half the letters, twice the fun. It's founded by a gentleman named Misha Collins, who some folks in your audience may know of. He was the character Castiel on the TV show Supernatural. And this is based on something that he did when he was in college at the University of Chicago. So every year there's 1 week of craziness. And it's the last week of July, first week of August. We get a list of about 200 plus items. We have 1 week and teams of either 9 or 15 people. And things that we have done in the past: hold a barbecue in a dumpster. Um, Panhandle on a street corner dressed like somebody dressed as a knight with a sign that says the dragon burned down my castle. Um,
Oh my gosh.
Dress your car up as your prom date. Make a portrait of your favorite actor only using Skittles. So there's this fun element. There's also a community service element. So we have done things like done a party for healthcare workers at the local hospital, delivered pizza to firefighters and police officers. Then there are things that are virtually impossible to do, like get an astronaut to like send a message from outer space, or hire a plane to skywrite something, or go ride a camel and get a picture of you on the camel. There's like one camel in all of Tennessee. So
You know this from
I
playing with
know
kids.
this. Make a throne out of kale. So, but then there's also a charity item that's involved where all the players come together, and we have raised funds for building houses for the homeless. We have raised money to help refugees get relocated, to help find landmines over in the Middle East. We helped raise money to build a funded dance school for a teacher in Africa that was dying, that wanted to make sure that this legacy stayed on for the girls in her village. So there's also this fundraising element.
Mhm.
And then there's also some political stuff involved, and some people get turned off by that. But if you know the founder, Misha, he was a political scientist. He worked in DC for years after school. And the cool thing about Gish is that you can pick and choose the items that you want to participate in. So if it doesn't apply or you're not interested, skip it. But it's global. So we've got people on our team this year in the US, in Canada, in Australia. So it's just a lot of fun. And then the goal is to get into the coffee book every year. So it's like a yearbook
Mhm.
in this beautiful, like, coffee table book with pictures and stuff. We have yet to make it in there, and 1 year we're going to be in that book.
Awesome.
And so if you follow me on social media, people are know when Gish is coming, because I'm always saying weird stuff like, does anybody have a cow that I can dress up? Or who knows what size shirt a pig wears? Um,
Oh, that's
I need a
great.
trampoline. Does somebody have a trampoline I can borrow? So it's fun because you can get your friends involved, but they don't have to play.
Mhm.
And so it's a great way to really spark that creativity, because you're up in the middle of the night going, how am I going to make this thing? It's like, how do you glue graham crackers together to make a 10-foot tall tower?
Wow. They must spend all year thinking of these things to put together for people to do.
Well,
This
so
one.
I got the list, but that when you're talking about how do I build some of this stuff into the activities and things that we do,
Mhm,
oftentimes I'll go back to because I've got, 10 years of access to these scavenger hunt lists and go, "Ooh, how can I recreate that as a training opportunity? How
mhm,
can I use that as a team building thing?" So these weird things that I do always go back to how do I get better at what I do and how can I make things better for my clients?
mhm. Yeah.
Oh, then there was the time when I was brand new at my job when I worked at the tech company and it was Gish week. I'd been on the job for 3 weeks and I'm like going to my boss going, "So would it be okay if I came to work dressed as a robot?" And she's like, "What?" So complete dressed as a robot. I'm laying in the back seat of my sister's SUV. She has to pull me out of the vehicle. My boss then had to let me into the building because, and it's like third day on the job. They're like, "What have we done?"
Who did we hire? Oh my gosh. 'Cause, it's so funny because that we were purposely doing and being silly, but then,
Yes,
sometimes real life imitates when we're pretending.
exactly.
My first job I was at a library.
Okay.
And one of my jobs was to shelve books. I shelved a lot of books. And I was in a small town and we had some interesting people who came into the library,
I
especially since
bet.
being in Michigan, it was cold sometimes. So one of the really interesting people we had was called Helmet Man because
Aha.
he sometimes would wear his helmet, but he had a big rope. And guess what? He's hung around the rope. He had a toilet seat.
Oh my
He had a
goodness.
toilet seat that would hung, he walked around with his toilet seat hung around him. And this guy, we had to watch him sometimes because every once in a while he decided that he wanted to curl under one of the shelves where there was no books on the bottom,
Oh,
and he would
wow.
just lay there and wait for some woman to walk by. So we had to kind of watch him. But but, but the question is, how many people are out there are playing the Gish game, and how many people are really out
Exactly.
there?
Yes. It's just like, I mean, and it did say a lot to me about the, choice of employer to allow me to do that. But, people are just like, "Oh my gosh, what have we done here?" Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had sword fights in Target wearing trash cans and it's, yeah, but it's just fun. And it really like forces you to be super creative for a week. And then it's like, how does this carry over into day-to-day life? Oh, I can make that more fun. Oh,
Mhm,
what if we do this? And so it's just a blast. And I really encourage everyone to play at least once because it's like I think $25 registration fee, and that goes to support the staff and the charity. But for, where else can you get that much fun for $25 for an entire week?
mhm. That's true, but, it's also true that we do have to keep making things fun at work. I mean,
Exactly.
spend most people spend a good 8 hours at work, and gosh, if you have to be there and it's boring or
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why, you see people filling their managers' offices with popcorn or, our boss went on vacation and we completely covered her entire desk, computer, everything in bubble wrap. And so when she got back from vacation, she's like, "What?" It's like, "Well, that'll teach you to go on vacation."
Oh, that's really good. Now, before we started, you were showing me a coffee mug. Where's that coffee mug you have?
The coffee mug is my Mysterians coffee mug.
Oh,
So let
you
me
gotta put
just
up a little higher. There
there
you
we
go.
go.
Oh, okay,
So
there it is.
Mysterious Chicago. Oh, and there's my Gish sign in the background also from 2019. We
Yeah.
always have a weird mascot.
Okay. So tell me about that. This
Sure. So
mysterious Chicago.
Mysterious Chicago, when you talk about creativity and changing with the situations, Mysterious Chicago is a tour company in Chicago. It's run by a guy named Adam Seltzer. And back when the lockdowns first started, he's like, "Oh, great, there goes my whole business because I do live in-person history and cemetery tours." So he's like, "Well, you know what? What the heck? I'm at the house." So he went onto Facebook and he started doing daily Facebook lives. And they were these abbreviated history tours.
Mhm.
In the year plus since he started doing that, he has accumulated about 30,000 fans. And there's about 1,500 of us in his fan club. So we are actually doing a convention to celebrate and support this thing. And we're going on cemetery tours. We're doing a cemetery cleanup in Chicago. But Mysterious Chicago has collected this group of people that would have never met. We are all learning things about history. It's on Facebook and it's also on YouTube. But what's really cool is that we've developed our own culture. And so if you were to watch one of the live long tours, for example, you would think that we were a bunch of alcoholic cyber killers, because every time he mentions like H.H. Holmes, who was allegedly the first serial killer in the United States, he wasn't, but people say he was, everybody will start copying comments, drink. Somebody appears with a mustache, it'll be like, drink. Somebody
No.
so it's just like, and then people are like, you guys must all be drunk. We're like, well, no, I'm drinking tea, I'm drinking water. It's just fun to say. So
Mhm.
we developed our own little culture around the tours. And we now have a pie place that's a favorite pie place in Chicago. There's logo merchandise. We have like secret handshakes. And Adam's also an author and he's on the History Channel. So now we'll like go, oh, did you see like from 10 years ago? He looks like he's a little boy. So we've created our own culture of fun, but I've also learned more about my hometown history than I ever did, because we've explored, Jane Hull and what she did. We've done H.H. Holmes, famous cemetery, famous people buried in Graceland Cemetery and Rose Hill. And then we get history lessons about the Underground Railroad and stuff. It's like, this is how you make learning fun. It's not a boring lecture. It's, I'm going to do some video and, oh, I'm going to go dance on this guy's grave because he was really mean or bad. And it's just like, oh, that's so cool.
Mhm.
And when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned Wild Chicago, and this really reminds me a lot of that, because Adam will do his tours with just his cell phone, and he'll be like walking down the street, recording things, and people must think like, who is this crazy guy talking to himself, not knowing that there's like 300 or 400 people watching back home
Mhm.
as he's going, oh, look at that mural. Let me tell you about this location where this person was stabbed with an umbrella in
Mhm.
1857.
Yeah, yeah. It's just so cool. Yeah, the Wild Chicago was a show that when I lived in Chicago, because I went to school there. This was back in the late 80s,
Uh-huh.
90s. These two guys, they just got their old video camera. I mean, just not a professional one, not a professional one at all. And they go to these really interesting places and they were just discovering them. I mean, I remember one time they went to this sausage factory in Chicago, and this guy that they're interviewing and they're showing the sausages and everything, he can hardly speak English, but it was great.
Oh,
It was great.
yeah, I mean, that's so cool. It's kind of like truly the person on the street, and they're
Mhm.
like, let's share this. And so this really, the Mysterious Chicago reminds me a lot of that. Because
Mhm.
like, oh, let's go look at murals. We're going to go to this neighborhood. We also make a lot of jokes about George Pullman, because anytime the technology quits working, we blame it on George Pullman and the Pullman neighborhoods. It's like, oh, you lost your keys. Pullman must have done it.
Yeah. So there's just so many ways that we can make life fun. And I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of parts of life that are serious and we have to handle them or whatever happens, we got to deal with whatever happens. But as long as we can go back and have that fun, I think it's just so, healthy. I had somebody on the podcast that she traveled with, all of a sudden I lost his name, the doctor that does the laughing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It'll come to us when we're not thinking
But
of it.
but anyways, she traveled with him and he was visiting people who were very sick and they were using laughter to heal them. So I think as bad as life can get sometimes, if we can find some piece of laughter somewhere, even if it's for a moment, it's
Yes.
worth it and we can stay healthy and good because I think our physical bodies actually need that, not
Oh,
just our
yeah.
emotional bodies, but our physical body needs to laugh and needs to find the fun and needs to just relax.
Yes. And I tell people, just because it's fun or you're having fun doesn't mean you can't be serious. Doesn't mean, I said, but when you add that element of fun or playfulness, people are more relaxed and they actually perform better. So if it's all like, and I've got that classic type A, super competitive personality, but
Mhm.
I also find ways to make it fun. and easy. And, it's like, how do you add a little levity to it? We used to laugh that the song from Monty Python, always look on the bright side of life. Well, if you're familiar with that Monty Python show, they're all on the verge of dying. And yet the song is talking about, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is. Look for that bright thing. What's that positive that you can take from this? It's just like, it's like you're saying, terminally ill patients and stuff too. It's like, but where's that positive? Oh, I got to see the sun today.
Mhm,
Oh, I got to talk to my grandchild today. So even though there's a lot of horrible stuff going on,
mhm,
find that little ray of light, that little piece of brightness to just bring a little less stress to you.
mhm. Yes, yes, beautiful. So, on that note, what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Oh, well, of course, we're moving on to Gish week. So Gish would clearly be one of those things right now. But aside from that, when I'm not doing Gish, I really like to read, because then I can go on adventures without leaving my house.
Mhm,
And I have a very eclectic taste in reading. So, one day I might be reading a true crime, the next day I might be reading something on gamification, but that lights me up. And then I like to crochet a lot. So I love creating things for other people. And
mhm,
so that's something that brings me a lot of joy. Frustration at times too, but it's less
mhm.
like, yeah, I'm working on crocheting cat pouches. So, um,
Okay.
I do not know if the cats will actually use them, but I found these patterns. It's like, okay, let's crochet some cat houses. Yeah, it's like, okay. So, but it's something new because it's like, I've never done a cat pouch. What does it look like? How do I do this? So there's some frustration involved because it's a new pattern, it's a new construction. But it's a lot of fun too, because just like your reaction, it's like, wait, what did she just say?
That is so much fun.
Yeah, so it's like, what kind of strange things can I do? So I've been working on tank slippers for my partner for like the last 3 years. He's fascinated by tanks.
Uh-huh.
Um, but these slippers are just insane. And I have to keep ripping them apart and redoing them because they're not fitting his feet. I've either made them too big or too small. And he's like, don't do that. That stresses me out. I'm like, no, it's got to be right. It doesn't stress me out. There's something really satisfying about tearing something apart and putting it back together
Uh-huh.
again.
There is. There's a lot of fun. I mean, think about when we were kids, especially younger kids. I mean, kids love to, build that tower with the blocks and then knock it down.
Yes. Yeah. Or Play-Doh,
Talk about
it's like I build
demolition.
something. Yeah. Build something with Play-Doh and then smash it. It's more satisfying to smash it than to build it. So yeah. So I get a lot of satisfaction about ripping it apart and then redoing
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, yeah, that is so fun. Well, and I'm
Uh-huh.
having so much fun. I really don't want this conversation to end, but we're coming to an end here.
I see
So,
that. Oh my goodness.
so I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for all the fun you have brought here.
Oh, thank you. It has been my pleasure. There's nothing like laughing the first thing in your day. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. So I have one last question. My last
Okay.
question I ask everybody. What is your best advice on living an amazing, incredible life?
My best advice is always look for the fun in every situation.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Well,
And
thank you.
yeah, we'll talk to you again soon, Mary.
All right. Bye.
Bye.